Good morning, how are you? I'm Gary Franscioni with Roar Wines. We're here at Sierra Mar and Sansia Highlands, and as you can see, we're getting ready for harvest. April Fools. But we're doing some things up here we're going to talk about and show you today and tell you a little bit about Roar Wines. So I have been farming for all my life. As you can see, I've got gray hair. And I'm a third-generation farmer. Our family came to this property in 1886. We're lifelong farmers. My sons, Adam and Nick, you'll see them in a little bit. We're going to taste some wine with you this morning. And so we're all in this together for a long time. Family business. I started growing vegetables in 1976 and transferred everything over into wine grapes and on 4 ranches, 4 properties that we'll talk about, in 1996 when we first planted rosellas. I then partnered with Gary Pizzoni, and my high school buddy. Went to high school together in Gonzales, a little 400 student high school in 1971, and we developed Gary's Vineyard in 1997. Our families go way back. We're pretty proud. Our fathers, both Gary and my father, went to high school together in 1937, the same high school that I went to and Gary went to. And rich farming history, early since what I mentioned, 1886, 1900. Early farming families have been here in the Sansia Highlands for over 100 years. So we're going to take some time here and show you today what we're doing in the vineyard is some shoot thinning. And we're very well known and we're very emphatic about handling our fruit and growing it from day one, which started in January, which is when we started pruning. So now what we're doing is we're shoot thinning. So what we want to do is remove shoots so that we create space and air, so as the shoot grows through and we train it all year long, we create light for all these tiny little clusters. So they're forming now. And these things, if there's 100 steps in growing a great Pinot Noir, we want to do one step at a time, and this is just one of the many steps. Not many people do this because we're losing crop, because we're dropping crop, but we want great airflow, sun exposure to give great phenolics to our fruit and character. So as you can see, we have a crew here, and everything's done by hand, very delicate. They've been with us over 22 years, this crew, and they know what we want, and we guide them every day. They're like family to us. They work on all 4 of our properties every day, 6 days a week, 10 months out of the year. So as you can see, if you can even show a shot here on the ground, some of the shoots that we're removing, which is eventual crop, but it's going to make better quality wine, and that's what we care about. Crossing, as I said, every 12 days. We want to treat each vine like it's an individual, and it's a person, and that's how we care for our vineyards. We grow small lots. Let me start back. We have 4 vineyards. So we're sitting at Sierra Mar. This is a vineyard most recently planted in 2007. It's 1,000 feet in elevation. It's got decomposed granite. And as you can see, there's spectacular views behind me and in front of me, the mountains. We've got small lots of 8 different clones of Pinot Noir, 5 different clones of Chardonnay, 3 different clones of Syrah, a little bit of Viognier at half acre. We just make barrels. We're always investigating and investing in the future. Some people talk about warm climate or climate change, and so we're in this cool area of Pinot Noir, but yet we planted a half acre of Grenache because we want to see if over time, and my kids 20, 30 years from now when I'm not around, that we're actually in a proper area for the proper varietal. So we're going to see the history of that Grenache grow over the next 20 years and see how it develops. because anything you do in a vineyard is not, it's basically a one-time deal. You can't change it year to year. I mean, for example, road directions, you just can't pull it up and change the road direction. But as we develop little small lots, 2 acres here, 3 acres here, every year, we change road directions. We'll go true north. We'll try and get that sun exposure, maximum sun exposure. But yet sometimes we don't want to go too far because we want to get some wind, our prevalent winds that are known in our area, to cool the grapes and dry off any mildew pressure or botrytis pressure, because those winds are very important, and I'll mention those in a bit. I think one of the important things about our operation is we make the calls. We live in the vineyard. We make the decisions. Many vineyards have vineyard management companies, and they're overlooking for growers, for landowners and property owners. And to me, they're just manufacturers. Whereas we truly make wine in the vineyard, and I think you have to be here every day to make those decisions and work on them hand by hand and day by day. It's not something you can just come in with a machine and mow through it and all of a sudden, voila, you've got an outstanding, unique wine. Now that just doesn't happen, and that's not what we believe in. We do believe in sustainability, and as I've said before, we're in this generational, and why would people go, well, how do I know you're sustainable? I go, well, why would I screw up my land and pass it on to my kids? It's a ridiculous statement. But we do what's needed in place. It's actually harder to get certified in sustainability than it is in organic. And although we practice some of each, we feel whatever best for the vineyard is what we want to do to make great wine. We sell to about, I'd say 12, 15 wineries, and they help promote our vineyards and things, and they're known around the state. And all of a sudden, here's a couple of them right here.
It's Bodega Odie and Domaine Larry going at it, fighting for grapes.
So what happens is these guys are actually fighting for grapes. That's what wineries look like when they're wanting grapes. They're actually out here fighting. And so in 2007, we had a waiting list of 62 wineries, and these are 2 of them. And they wanted to buy our grapes, so that's when we developed Sierra Mar and Sobranas. So a couple of the other vineyards that we farm is my home property. Rosella is named after my wife, and she was the inspiration of developing that vineyard as well. And only 2 miles away then was the Gary's vineyard, adjacent to Sobranas vineyard, and then here about 6 miles to the south is Sobranas. So as I've tried to explain, within 8 miles we have 4 different properties, and that's what makes it exciting for me to make wine from 4 different properties, is that all the Pinots taste different, and they're only a couple miles apart. And that's the exciting thing about Rohr Pinots, is that they're all different. And yet they're all right here, right in our backyard, and we farm and we just do it all. I'm so happy our family's together and working in the same business. We just built a new facility about 30 minutes from here, and so we're all in-house. Both boys, Nick runs the winery, Adam runs the vineyard, and I kind of oversee everybody and make sure we're on the right track. Let's walk down the row here, because we're going to head towards maybe a little tasting. But one of the things about the Sancerre Highlands is what makes it so special is that it's a cool climate. So we sit 15 miles off of Monterey Bay, and every night about 10 o'clock the fog rolls in off the bay and down the Sancerre Highlands, down the valley. It comes down the valley and then up the mesa. And then about 10 o'clock in the morning it burns off, down the mesa, out the valley, back to the bay, just like clockwork. And so there's about 2 hours of sunshine, and then literally the wind roars through the valley and shuts down the vines. And that's what gives us this long, cool growing season from March through September and October. Our summers are typically 72-degree days. I've always got a layered close on, and as the vines shut down, it gives them a cooler, longer growing season, and allows for, with no spring frost and no fall rains, we have really full flavor development in our wines. And I think that's really key. I've always said that, you know, our vintages, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, are very consistent in quality because of that climate that we're given here. I talked a little bit about soils, some of the things that make the properties different, besides elevations, 1,000 feet here, down to 300 feet at Rosella's down the valley. Sandy loam soils there versus decomposed here. The whole bench, the whole Sancerre Highlands has southeast sun exposure. So we get that beautiful sun exposure in the morning, and in the afternoon, the late suns don't really burn because the sun peaks back behind the mountains. So we really don't have any sun burning here at all.
There's a question about what does the longer growing season do for flavor?
Okay, so the longer growing season extends into September and October to allow the flavor development to develop over time. So say you had a heat wave of 100 degrees, just exaggerating, and sugars spike, and so your acids don't marry with the sugars. You're tasting more sugar than your acids. You want a combination of them, and for the phenolics to develop, that takes 30 to 45 days, and you don't want that to happen all in 1 week. It's like, you know, I'd rather slow steam and cook my vegetables instead of microwave them.
Like it.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to our Adam here. We pulled a barrel out of the cellar today, and because we like to drink in the vineyard. There's nothing better than drinking in the vineyard, and I would invite all of you to come out here anytime when this whole pandemic gets over with and drink in the vineyard, because this is a bucket list thing you got to do. Adam, you want to talk about the Chard?
Yeah, what an offer. Make sure to take my dad up on that offer about coming out here and tasting the wines where they're grown. So my name's Adam Franscioni. As my dad mentioned, I help out here on the farming side. And yeah, we brought a barrel out. It smells nice and good. So we do, what I'm going to taste you guys on right now, or what I'm going to taste and describe to you guys, is our 2018 Santa Lucia Highland Chardonnay, which is being carried in Chicago. We make about 290 cases of this, and this is the biggest lot of Chardonnay that we make in our program, actually. So as you can see, we're very small production. We're about 5,000 cases between Chardonnay, Pinot, and then some Rhone varietals. And the process on the Chard. So obviously, as my dad mentioned, we're really big believers of making the wine in the vineyard. And so through all the farming practices my dad just described, in the winery, we're really just trying to express what we're doing here in the vineyard. So when we bring it into the winery, we press off into a tank, then we inoculate in the tank to make sure that everything starts to ferment, and then we let it barrel ferment once it starts to get a little bit of fermentation going. And so we'll use about 30% new oak, new French oak. Everything's 100% French oak, but you'll see a lot of old barrels. We keep a good amount of old barrels to make sure that when we do put our Chardonnay in oak, a lot of it is pretty neutral, so it's been stripped of a lot of those oak characteristics. We'll usually let it age in barrel for anywhere from 13 to 14 months before bottling, and yeah, let's give it a so. 18 was an. So this is this comes from 3 vineyards. This wine from Sierra Mar, Sobranis, and Rosella's. And 18 was really a great vintage for us. Prior to 18, a lot of the picking for the Chardonnay was a bit condensed and was kind of done within a week of everything. Whereas in 18, we really were able to spread out. So we were having 3 weeks from the first pick of Chardonnay to the last pick of Chardonnay, which is really nice for us because it gives us a good control and gives us a lot of time to really hone in on what exactly we want the flavors to be when we harvest it. So yeah, 18 great vintage, and yeah, we'll go on to Nick, who's about to taste the Pinot.
All right. So for the finale, we have the Pinot, which is probably what we're most well known for, and it's the biggest part of our production. About 85 to 90% of what we grow and produce is Pinot Noir. We love it. It's what our family loves to drink. My dad and my mother created this brand in wanting to create a wine that they love to drink any day of the week, and so that is what we have in the glass. Is about 20 years of incremental development to bring it to what it is today, and it's a wonderful wine. It's very much a Santa Lucia Highland wine. It has the bold fruit flavors and has some wonderful structure to it, and are built really to age. I mean, they'll taste great straight out of the gates, like they are now, but you give them 7 to 10 years and they shine just as beautifully, if not more elegant. And so I always encourage, I'm not the best at explaining exactly what a wine tastes like. I think you have to actually really taste it in order to know what a raw Pinot Noir is. And the moment that you do, I am sure that you will forever know what that style of roar is. It is a very memorable wine. They certainly are fruit forward, like many of the Santa Lucia Highland wines are. They're not a bomb, and they're certainly not lacking in any way. But you will know that the fresh fruit that we get from the vineyard is what we want to shine in the glass. And so you will certainly get that, along with the program of wonderful barrel aging that we do, which I think just combines to make a beautiful, delicate, and an elegant wine. And so just in terms of how we make the wine, so we'll harvest all of the Pinot in September. That's the heart of when we harvest. And so we'll pick it all in the middle of the night. We'll bring it into the winery, nice, fresh, cold fruit, put it on the sorting table. We'll hand sort it. So we have a team of usually about 10 people in there looking at the fruit, making sure that everything we're gonna get is gonna go into the fermentation. And then we'll destem it into a bin. We'll take that bin, we'll place the fruit into our big tanks. We have some really cool big wide tanks, which is great for the skin to juice ratio, so we get some wonderful extraction with that. Very, very important part of our program, mostly 5-ton tanks, a couple 3-ton tanks in there. So we have different sizes of the ferments, but it's all kind of planned out throughout the season of what we're going to take and what we're going to put in there. We will bring it in, we'll cold soak it for 4 to 5 days, and then we will let the heat come up, allow it to kick off its ferment. We'll inoculate it, we'll let it push through the fermentation. Cap management is very, very important for us. We are constantly watching the cap, punching it down. We do punch downs once or twice a day, depending on the time of the harvest or the time of the fermentation. And yeah, so we'll see through a nice healthy ferment, and once that's done, we'll rack it off into barrel. It all goes to French oak, 100% French, about 65% new oak, and we have a good program with 5 different coopers that we use across various forests in France, mostly in the medium toast range. We'll let it go natively through malolactic fermentation, and then usually we're tasting and blending from March until May. We'll finish off all of our blends, so we do barrel selections for all of the wines that we create, and then we'll, as a team, decide on those blends. We'll take them to tank, put them in the bottle, package it up, send it off, let them rest for a little bit, and then we'll have them ready in the March timeframe to start to sell them, to get them to Lagniappe and to get them out there into your market and hopefully in front of you and your customers. And so that's kind of the timeline of things. So we're looking at the 2020 vintage out here right now. It'll be about 2 years before you have that wine in glass in front of you. So it's a long process. Everything's done by hand throughout all of the vineyard bits, all the way through the winemaking and all the way through till bottling. It's a very long process. We love it. It's very hands-on. It's very engaging. It's very much rooted in the ground of what we do, who we are, and we love the style of wine that we create. And we're very, very excited about this venture with Lagniappe and working with them and getting out a bigger presence into Chicago and selling the wine out there. And we look forward to making some trips as well. And so we'll look forward to seeing you once things settle down and we ramp up in the market.
That's our short story for today. We got a bunch more, but in the meantime, I'm going back to work.